Starting us off at number 10 is the dryer. This story utterly horrified me, I don't even know what to say. This one involves the Dozier School for Boys located in Marianna, Florida, and this school was already known for the horrible abuse the students underwent during the 50s and 60s. Now, on paper, the state boarding school was meant to be a place the boys could go for not only education but rehabilitation as well. For the 11 years it stayed open, the school became notorious for the abuse, torture, rape, and murder of its students. 55 unmarked graves were found on the grounds and around 100 deaths were documented at the school. Last year, during pollution cleanup, a further 27 graves were identified, which I mean is ridiculous. In my entire high school career, only 2 people died. Either way, former students started speaking out about the abuse and got the nickname the White House Boys. One of them, Roger Kaiser, shared that he saw a dead student fall out of the dryer. The staff had put him in one of those large dryers and killed him. Jerry Cooper, another White House boy, shared that he was beaten with a leather strap in his bed and that the first blow literally sent him 1.5 feet off his bed. Coming in at number 9 is the headmaster. Ian Wilson was sent to Hillstone School located in Worcestershire at the age of 7 years old, although some students were a lot younger than that. The school's headmaster, Rudolph Barber Simpson, was a sexual sadist and his wife was also a monster. Anytime she found out that Rudolph fancied one of the students and had sexually abused them, his wife would punish the student with torture techniques like force feeding you your least favorite food till you vomited, push you into the pool before you could swim, or even lock you in a cage, the same cage that usually had rabbits and guinea pigs in it to show prospective parents. A 70-year-old man literally broke down after reading Wilson's article because he had attended the school 10 years before he had. At the start of the school holiday, his mom had found blood in his underwear and rushed him to the doctor only to find out that he had been raped by who else than Rudolph himself. Another boy at the school had suffered from bouts of depression after going to the school and eventually admitted Rudolph routinely assaulted him, and he later committed suicide in his early 20s. At number 8 we have the Tsar. Back in June of 2012, journalist Whit Shepard exposed Peter Hindle, a former maths teacher at Massachusetts Deerfield Academy. Nicknamed the Tsar, Hindle was well loved by the students when he really shouldn't have been. Whit was a student at the boarding school from 1979 to 83, and it was during his second last year when he fell prey to Hindle's predatory ways. At first it was just a few innocent back rubs offered by the Tsar, but it wasn't long before things became highly inappropriate and sexual. Hindle waited till Whit was 18 before he started abusing him, and the worst part was the teacher would even shower with the grade's football team in their small locker room after practice. Like, hello, someone arrest this pedophile. Filling at number 7 slot are the isolation boxes part 1. The Midwest Academy in Iowa was the stuff of nightmares. Former students shared how the staff would keep the students in tiny concrete isolation boxes for days or even weeks at a time for punishment. Inside, they would have to sit in the exact same position in silence and get little to no food as motivational recordings were repeatedly played. Emily Beeman shared that you would literally just sit there banging your head against the wall and you could never even sleep because the girls in the other boxes would just be screaming the entire time. The only reason Emily got out of the box is because she cut herself with a bottle cap and begged EMTs to take her anywhere else. Another former student, Lauren Snyder, said the recordings would turn up so loud when she was in there that the speakers would just make a loud screeching sound, and it got so bad she eventually tried committing suicide by tying a sock around her neck. The only thing the girls could look forward to were their bathroom breaks from the boxes, which were also still few and far between.
Moving on to number 6 now, we have Halloween. In 2013, parents of students across Pennsylvania were very angry at what they saw as a ban on Halloween in schools there. Local school districts had decided children would no longer be allowed to dress up in Halloween costumes if Halloween fell on a school day. Many parents felt it was a worrying trend of schools trying to strip education of any fun at all. Sue Dimoff, whose grandchildren attended Sporting Hill Elementary School, was quoted at the time as saying, "I'm really upset. They want to change Christmas, Halloween. There's no Valentine's Day parties. It's ridiculous." What do you guys think about this? I grew up in the UK where we never really dressed up for Halloween at school anyway, but I would be interested to hear some of our American viewers' opinions on this. Next up at number 5 now we have Evolution. In 2009, Smith Cotton High School's marching band started selling these t-shirts. The shirt there says Tiger Pride Marching Band Brass Evolutions 2009, and we've got the famous image known as the Ascent of Man, where each of them is holding a different brass instrument. Well, some religious parents didn't like that and complained that the mention of evolution offended them. The school seemed to agree with them and ended up buying every single shirt for $700 just to keep them out of the school. This caused a lot of outrage because many people felt this was silencing established science and had nothing to do with religious sensitivity. Moving on to number 4 now, we have Flamin' Hot Cheetos. In 2012, several schools in California, New Mexico and Illinois banned Flamin' Hot Cheetos and began confiscating them on site. The schools were trying to combat what they saw as a worrying trend when it came to student obsession with this snack. One senior was quoted as saying, 8 out of 10 kids bring them to school. I used to be one of them. I ate them every day, even for breakfast, and I got really big. There were days when if my mother didn't buy them for me, I would get so mad. It took me 3 months to quit. Do you guys think this is a positive step for the schools to make regarding their students' health, or is it totally pointless to ban just one specific brand of snack? Moving on to number 3 now, we have books. If there's one place you didn't expect books to be banned, it's probably a library. I guess if there's a second place though, it's probably a school. Many schools have banned certain books over the years from being on their premises based on their content. There are obviously ridiculous ones such as Harry Potter, which some say promotes witchcraft and dark magic. There's ironic ones such as Animal Farm and Fahrenheit 451. And then there's ones that are still being fiercely debated today, such as The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Those books were written when slavery was legal in the US. Some see them as important historic texts to learn from, but others feel the content is just too racist for students. Next up at number 2 now, we have Father's Day cards. Schools in Scotland made the headlines in 2008 when they banned students from making Father's Day cards for fear of embarrassing classmates who lived with single mothers or lesbian parents. Family rights campaigners condemned the policy as absurd and argued that it marginalizes fathers. Local authorities responded by saying that they need to reflect the changing pattern of family life. What got people even more angry though was that Mother's Day card making was still totally permitted, leaving many to question the potential double standards. And finally, number 1 now, we have cartwheels and handstands. A school in Western Australia got a lot of flack for banning its students from doing cartwheels and handstands because they were too dangerous. Bunbury Primary School say that at least 2 students every single day were coming to their offices with injuries to their wrists. School principal Shane Doherty said, "This is not about stopping kids from taking risks and having fun, but attempting things like flips or handstands on sloping grassed areas without learning how to do it properly is never a good idea." Do you think that's fair? Because children do sometimes hurt themselves, or is this way too over the top? Coming in at number 10 now, we have best friends. Yes, you heard me right. In 2012, it was reported that some schools in the south of England were banning school kids from having best friends so they didn't get upset by falling out with each other. An educational psychologist explained that they did it because they wanted to save the children the pain of splitting up from their best friend. Other people said this was totally ridiculous because children should feel the pain of friendships breaking up so they know how to deal with it when they're older. What would you guys do if someone banned you from having your best friend? No. Alright, next up at number 9 now, we have mentioning dinosaurs. I'm not making this one up. In 2012, the New York Department of Education put a ban on certain words that might cause unpleasant emotions in students. These include words like divorce and disease in case the students are dealing with them at home. Words like terrorism and slavery are on the list too, but also dinosaurs. Apparently this is because the word dinosaurs could bring up the topic of evolution, which could cause religious arguments in the classroom. Dinosaur, 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 dinosaur. I guess this video won't be played in New York schools now. Moving on to number 8, we have hugging. Now normally you'd think hugging would be great for kids. It's a natural human thing to do to show affection or just to say hello and goodbye. Well, apparently not, according to a lot of schools that have banned it. Schools in America, Australia and New Zealand have all banned hugging because they say it can be inappropriate, it can make other students feel uncomfortable and even be used to bully people. One student in Florida was even suspended for a whole day in 2011 for hugging his female friend. I think he probably needs a hug after that. Next up at number 7, we have being too ginger. In 2015, Emily Ree from the UK was told that if she did not dye her hair a more natural colour, she would not be allowed to return to school. This wasn't Emily's natural hair colour to begin with. She had dyed it red 3 years earlier, but now the school had had enough. They said that no unnatural hair colour was allowed. Emily and her family argued that red hair is very much a natural hair colour. I'm just glad I grew my beard after I left school.
Coming in at number 6, schools judge parents as much as the child. Yep, bad kid, bad parents, or so it often goes. If a child never has any food with them for lunch, it's probably the parents' fault. Often teachers will keep an eye on a child that they suspect has a parental issue, and then they will decide whether or not to call them in. Coming in at number 5, I really hope this isn't too much of a secret, failing a test isn't the end of the world. I hope that schools do reveal this to kids, because sometimes kids crumble under pressure of exams, and they should know that messing up on occasion really just isn't the end of the world. When you're 40 years old, you probably won't hinge the failings or successes of your entire life on one exam, so relax, chill out. You'll probably get a better grade if you're not feeling stressed anyway. Okay, next. Shh, don't tell anyone, but not doing your homework probably won't affect your grade. This is coming in at number 4. In most schools, your day-to-day homework won't contribute to your grade. However, your essays and test results will. The reason that you're assigned homework is to prepare your brain for the tests and essays that will count, so it's always a good idea to do it. Although you should know a teacher can't fail you for not doing your homework. Ooh, sorry to tell you, but coming in at number 3, your hard work isn't always read properly when it's graded. Teachers are busy. Imagine, they take 5 different classes a day, and they need to grade work from each student in an evening. It's an endless pile. More often than not, teachers will want to get the additional workload done and dusted so they can focus on having a life, because they have one too. The problem is, it does seem a little bit unfair when you spend hours on a piece of work that gets like 3 minutes of attention from teachers just because they want to watch some Netflix. Sad but true, at number 2, a lot of teachers are very unhappy. Teachers kind of have a rough time of it. They're not just working while you're at school, they're there before and after, setting up and tearing down your lessons. Also, then they're marking or preparing for the next day. Most teachers that I know work from 8 AM till 5 or 6 PM, and then they have marking on top of that. They don't get paid that much either, which is a constant bone of contention. Increasingly these days, they also have to deal with violent children, which is very scary, and I guess at the end of the day, sometimes they wonder, is it worth it? Finally, number 1 of our top 10 secrets that schools don't want you to know, big end of year exams are actually proven to be bad for students. There have been a lot of studies that have revealed that end of year exams with big weightings on a student's grade are actually very harmful to them. It turns out that tests aren't always the best way to decipher a person's intelligence, and the system is heavily weighted against those who struggle with anxiety. Hopefully one day there will be a better way to test people in the future. In Finland, for example, there are no tests except for one exam at the end of senior year at high school. Alright, coming in at number 10, my personal favourite, we have the actress of Anchorage. I am always here for a theatre ghost, as discussed, like I really am. An Alaskan theatre ghost? Like, mate, sign me up, that sounds spooky and cold and spooky again. It seems that West High School in Anchorage is the known home of a lady in white, an apparition that haunts the theatre auditorium and backstage spaces. The ghost has been known to run down corridors screaming too, which is just classic drama queen. It seems that those who have had a good look at her say that her white dress appears to be some kind of costume. It is said that she shows up in the audience during productions, occasionally causing lights to flicker. Honestly, take this from a drama geek, your theatre ain't nothing without a theatre ghost, so really you should thank her. Coming into number 9, we have Arizona's Lee Williams High School. I like Arizona, I went there a couple of years ago and I thought it was really cool. But I guess it is a bit of a spooky place, it's quite historic. Now this is actually a newish school in the States and very new compared to a lot of schools on this list, but it has a history. This school is built on the site of 2 former schools with a very haunted reputation. Now the first was Mohave County Union High School, which prior to that was built on the site of an old pioneer village. See where I'm going with this? During the remodel for the new school, graves were found on the grounds and they were seemingly from an old cemetery. It is said that a number of bodies were exhumed and removed to build the school's foundations, which has only disturbed some of the old spirits. Yes, the school has erected a memorial stone for the 350 settlers who were buried underneath the property, but that isn't enough to settle them down. It is said that women in prairie outfits and men in old-fashioned clothing have been spotted watching on at sporting games. For now they haven't done anything, but will they? If any of you go to any of these schools, by the way, please do let me know in the comment section down below, because you can, verify this for me. I want to know the answer to this. What is in room 428 at Ohio University? Find out at number 8. Ohio University, well, it actually has it all going on, really. It's built on an ancient burial ground, it's a former insane asylum, it's surrounded by cemeteries. I mean, what else could we add? The building is already your absolute classic horror movie trope. The campus is said to be haunted by a plethora of ghouls, as you would expect. However, the most enduring legend is the legend of room 428. It is said that in the 1970s, a woman became as if possessed. She was shouting and screaming and acting crazy, and then, oddly, she fell to her death. What room did she fall from? Room 428 of Winston Hall. After her death, the room was reportedly so haunted, so scary, that it has been permanently sealed. You can't go there. Or can you? Okay, next up we have a ghost caught on camera.
At number 6 now, we have red ink. When I was at school, I would dread getting my work back from my teacher covered with red ink, because it would be my teacher pointing out all the little mistakes I made. Well, in 2014, one school in the UK decided to ban red ink being used because it's a negative colour. Mounts Bay Academy in Cornwall told its teachers to use green pens instead when marking students' work. They said they weren't going all soft and fuzzy, and that it was actually designed to encourage dialogue between teachers and students. Apparently, some students even complained and said they want the red ink back because it's easier to read. Another high quality debate about education. Moving on to number 5 now, we have Pokemon. I don't know why this means Pokemon.
So that's right, I chose Team Instinct. Let's do it.
Now, you guys might be thinking that Pokemon was banned because it was a distraction for kids, but no. In 2000, all Pokemon related products were banned in a New Zealand school because they were, and I quote, laced with references to the occult. Basically, the school thought they were satanic in nature. The co-principal said they banned Pokemon because it is stubborn, headstrong, quibbling, self-centered, vindictive, obnoxious, hormonal, sexually preoccupied, evil, thieving, and cross-dressing. Now, we all know Pokemon isn't any of those things, so kinda sounds like he was projecting some of his own issues, if you get what I mean. Alright, next up at number 4 now, we have yoga pants. In 2011, it was reported that a Canadian school told its students they would be sent home if they turned up in yoga pants. St. Joseph Catholic High School in Ottawa said that tight yoga pants would not be allowed unless they were sufficiently covered up by a long shirt or sweater. What's interesting is the most angry reaction to this didn't come from the students, but actually from their parents. One mother sent a letter to the school board asking why the school's emphasis is not more on her daughter's actual education rather than what pants she was wearing that day. The school had no comment. What do you guys think? Yoga pants too revealing for school? Maybe I'll wear some in my next video. Who knows? Moving on to number 3 now, we have the dictionary. That's right, you might think that a book that contains an alphabetical list of every word and their definitions couldn't possibly be ban-worthy, but you'd be wrong. In 2010, the school boards of Southern California started pulling the Merriam-Webster dictionary from shelves for 9 and 10-year-olds because it included a definition for oral sex. A spokeswoman said it's just not age appropriate, and that although it's hard to sit and read the dictionary, they'll keep looking to find other things of a graphic nature. That sounds like a very, very boring job. Literally reading every word in the dictionary in the hopes of finding a rude definition. Nice. Coming in at number 2 now, we have the man bun. In 2015, students at BYU Idaho's campus were told that the man bun had been man-banned. The Student Services Vice President said that as part of the dress and grooming code, we commit to avoid extreme hairstyles. A man bun would be considered not consistent with this standard. That's right guys, man buns are now seen as extreme. If extreme sports such as BMXing, parkour or base jumping seem a little bit too much for you, well now you can just tie your hair in a bun and you'll be like, crazy extreme, extremely extreme. I don't know. I don't feel very extreme. And finally at number 1 now, we have playing tag. What could be more innocent in the world than a nice game of kids playing tag? It's been around for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years, so I'm sure it's safe, right? You guys know what's coming by now. It's been banned in quite a lot of schools. Back in 2006, schools all across Washington banned tag because it was seen as too dangerous. Schools put the ban in place after kids kept running into each other. Yeah, I mean, is that the first time they've ever met a kid? That's kind of what kids do. They run after each other and they run into each other. That's probably where kids learn to not run into each other. In fact, if it wasn't for tag, I'd probably be running into people every single day. Maybe.
Coming in at number 10, teachers have favourites and least favourites. And guys, it does affect the way that you're going to be treated. Obviously, I mean, come on, it's pretty clear. Just how kids have favourite teachers and least favourite teachers, and just how in life we have favourite and least favourite people, teachers will pick their favourites. Teachers are more likely to help students who are polite to them. They're more likely to grade up their papers if they're borderline. And of course, they're more likely to cut these students some slack. Their least favourites, however, are likely to be students who are rude or arrogant, and guess who are going to be downgraded if they're borderline. Even if teachers are supposed to treat their students equally, their emotions do come into play. Coming in at number 9, teachers talk about you behind your back. Remember those least favourite students? Well, teachers don't usually keep that to themselves. Also, if they find you an interesting character, they'll talk about you too. It's not always bad kids that they talk about. If you rotate classes, you will have a number of teachers, and they will enjoy talking about you to one another. They'll probably even share stories about you in the staff room. Coming in at number 8, in schools, teachers have drama just like kids. It isn't just you that hates Mr. Fitz. Mrs. Green does too, and whatever, because teachers have staff room dramas too, especially as some of them are wildly different people who have different ways and beliefs on how to do things. Teachers sometimes can't stand one another, but they have to work together, although on the flip side, some of them are dating and they really don't want you to know about it. Coming in at number 7, teachers look up kids and their parents on social media. Yep. You might Facebook stalk people, maybe even your teachers, but they look you up and your parents up too. Curiosity is natural, and finding out that you are actually skipping school to drink in the park or go to the mall is possible with the power of social media. Also, creeping on your parents may go some way to explaining why you are the way you are.
Now at number 6 are the isolation boxes part 2. I honestly read so many horrible accounts of what happened to these students at this academy that I genuinely wanted to give it 2 parts because I feel like they deserve it. Rachel Adkisson was put in the box and she refused to run during gym class, and by the time she was released from it 2 weeks later, she had lost a whopping 20 pounds. So just imagine how little the staff actually feed these students. When students were behaving well, they could eventually rank to level 3 in points, which meant they could help the staff surveillance the boxes. Sean McCarthy rose to that level and said the worst thing he ever saw was one girl cutting her finger and drawing on the walls with her blood before pissing on the floor. And the torture at the school went beyond the boxes. There was sexual and physical abuse between staff and students, and the Southeast Iowa jury finally found former boarding school director Benjamin Train guilty of abusing his students. So I mean, there's justice there, but not for all the students who are still having nightmares about their experiences till this day. Coming in at number 5 is talking to girls. This one made me quite sad just because of how young the boy in the story was. This story took place back in 2014 on Valentine's Day at Abundant Life Academy located in Caroline County, Virginia. 3 life coaches and a director punished a 14-year-old boy for simply talking to a girl, since the academy had a rule about not talking to them. The 4 men literally chase him and tackle him down to the ground while beating him, and there's literally a video of this on CBS 6 and I watched it. To my horror, I recommend you guys don't. They then took to waking him from sleep every 90 minutes, all of which was apparently the punishment written down by the academy for an instance like this. The 4 employees were charged with mob and assault, but after striking a deal with the Commonwealth's attorney, they only pleaded guilty to simple assault. This is actually disgusting. These are 4 grown-ass men gang up this tiny 14-year-old boy. Other accounts of abuse include making the boy stand in a swamp for long periods of time. At number 4 is branding. Now everyone knows boarding schools are strict, but I don't think any school is stricter than a military boarding school. The one in question is St. John's Military School located in Salina, Kansas. In order to discipline their students, one prevailing tradition proved lethal, and that was to let senior students be in control of disciplining the fresh recruits. Which, hello, have we learned nothing from the Stanford prison experiment? If you give people authority and power over others, they will abuse it. For example, in 2012, 11 students from the school came forward about abuse and hazings they had suffered at the school. One claimed he was pinned down and branded on his belly with an insignia pin, which is absolutely awful. Jesse McTaggone dreamed of being an army officer his whole life, so imagine the horror he and his parents suffered when after only 2 weeks of being at St. John's he had to be rushed to the hospital. He'd been so badly beaten and abused by senior students that both his legs had been broken. Filling at number 3 slot is Madam Koi Koi. In the late 1970s there was a very beautiful, stylish teacher that worked at a secondary boarding school in Calabar, Nigeria. Legend has it she used to wear heels every single day, which kind of made a koi-like sound, so that's where the name originated. As beautiful as she was on the outside, Madam Koi Koi was as hideous on the inside. She was known for physically abusing the hell out of her students any chance she got. She reveled in it. Eventually her students got sick of management not doing anything about her and took matters into their own hands. One night as she left school, a group of students cornered her, gagged her, and then beat the hell out of her. They didn't mean to kill her, but they accidentally had, and so panicking, they just threw her body over the back fence. The students assumed people would think armed robbers did the deed, but they'd be wrong. Slowly but surely, the students involved started disappearing one by one. The only one that survived was the one that beat her with her own shoes, because he was the only person who told people what they had actually done, and how he heard the sound of her heels around his hostel every single night. One night, after being terrorized by the sound for too long, he went to find the source, but he never returned. His body was found beaten to death the next day. Now at number 2 are American residential schools. At the end of the 1800s, around the end of the American Indian Wars, the US government was trying to find a solution to their quote-unquote Indian problem. Despite them coming and taking the land from the Native Americans, like there is no Indian problem, there was a colonization problem, and the colonizers made damn sure to disenfranchise the population as much as possible. The US government were baffled that Native Americans were somehow here first, and problematically so, still wanted their land. What a shock. Their solution was to kill the Indian in them and save the man, aka force assimilation into the culture, and that came in the form of residential boarding schools. Native American children were taken from their families by force and sent to schools miles away from their homes in hopes that there would be no cultural preservation. At the school, students weren't allowed to express their culture at all. That meant not speaking a single Indian word, not wearing long hair, and not even using their given American Indian names. They literally brainwashed these kids. Billy Wright, a Patuan Indian, was one of those students. When he went home, his grandma spoke to him in Indian and he didn't understand anything she was saying. When he told her his name was Billy, she said no it wasn't, and he said that's not what they told me. Can you imagine how brainwashed you have to be to not even know your name isn't Billy? They didn't even educate them properly, whether it was maths or English. They would just teach them carpentry and housekeeping, so they could never do more than just that. And finally, at number 1 are Canadian residential schools. I don't think I could have made anything else take the top 2 spots, because the amount of abuse, heartbreak, torture, and more that the First Nations people of Canada suffered while residential schools were a thing is absolutely horrifying, and there really aren't enough words to describe how sorry I personally am for that happening to them and to all the Native Americans. Canadian MPs have done all to make up for any of the abuses these people have faced at the hands of the people in power who were meant to protect them as well, which is shocking. Either way, following on from the US, Canada tackled their Indian problem the same way by kidnapping Aboriginal kids and literally imprisoning them in residential schools. For hundreds of years, these kids were treated like absolute shite, sexually and physically abused, and even used in medical experiments, may it be exposure to disease, skin grafting, electroshock therapy, and more. Amnesty International shared that police and government officials would rent out residential school kids to pedophile rings. Around 50,000 kids died, and most of these schools have tons and tons of unmarked graves for students and even their kids born from being raped by church officials. Most people were actually even sterilized to stop them populating further.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have toilet doors. In 2012, a school in Texas removed the doors to its bathroom stalls in order to keep kids safe. McKinney North High School caused a lot of outrage from students and parents, with many of them feeling the true reason for the ban on doors was because of illicit sexual behavior in the bathrooms. One high school student said they walked into the bathroom before and seen girls there with guys, but the school denies it was for this reason. They said it was specifically to tackle bullying and students fighting in those cubicles. Do you guys believe them on that? And if you do you think that's a fair reason to remove the privacy that a cubicle door provides? Next up at number 9 now, we have the word meep. In 2009, the principal of Danvers High School in Massachusetts banned the word meep Meep, made famous by Beaker, who is one of the Muppets. According to the story, students were meeping in disruptive ways in their lessons. Teachers were unable to get them to stop, and so they felt it was necessary to just ban the word altogether. The principal said to the media, "It has nothing to do with the word, it has to do with the conduct of the students. We wouldn't just ban a word just to ban a word." Some people agreed that this was a necessary thing to do, while others said the principal took it too far when he started forwarding emails he had been sent containing the word meep to the police. I can only imagine making the word meep borderline illegal to high school students probably had the opposite of the desired effect. Next up at number 8 now, we have skinny jeans. In 2009, Kimbrough Middle School in Texas announced they would be cracking down on what was a new trend at the time, wearing skinny jeans. Seth Chamley was a student who turned up to school wearing skinny jeans one day. The teachers gave him a very simple choice: go home or wear something provided by the school instead. He went home and his parents ended up keeping him there, deciding instead to homeschool him. The school said the jeans were too tight and that it was disruptive when he sat down. I mean, this one is kind of funny, but in the years since then, more and more schools around the world have done similar things. Do you think it's fair to enforce certain dress codes, or are schools always behind the times when it comes to clothes? Next up at number 7 now, we have being on social media. Now for this one, you guys may think I'm referring to a student being on social media at school. No, I mean they were banned from simply having an account at all. This story comes from Pope John the 23rd Regional High School in New Jersey. In 2005, the Reverend there held an assembly in which he told students they would have to dismantle their personal pages on sites such as MySpace and other blogs, or face suspension from the school. He said he was doing this to protect students from online sexual predators who may use the sites to gain personal information and pictures from the children. If this was the reason, then I guess it's nice that he thought to protect them, but I think it's a totally mental way to do things in this day and age. What would you guys do if your school told you to not access social media at home? Moving on to number 6 now, we have Cathedral High School. How do you make a school haunted? You build it on a cemetery. That's the recipe, and that's exactly what this LA school did. They built it on top of the bodies of scores of buried Catholics. Sometimes when they renovate the school, they find tombstones, coffins, and even bones underneath. This seems far from resting in peace, and many students at the school have reported seeing and hearing the spirits of the dead. Creepy stuff. I think they should just let all the students go home, like forever. Next up at number 5 now, we've got Lee Williams High School. In Kingman, Arizona, students have reported seeing the ghost of a man in a bowler hat at the school. He never says anything, just kind of walks the hallways wearing a long, creepy coat. Scary. But what's creepier than that, you might ask? How about a little girl? Yes, the ghost of a little girl has also been heard at the school at night, calling out that she just wants to go out and play. Ugh. The thing about creepy ghost girls is that they'd have a lot more friends if they didn't call out creepy things like, please come out and play. No, I don't want to. Alright, coming in at number 4 now, we have Urbana High School. This school in Illinois has had ghost stories attached to it for many years. There are stories online of students being too scared to climb up to the towers at the top of the building. Apparently, they used to be classrooms, but now they are just the stuff of legend. Why? Well, the stories that have been passed down include a ghost haunting there who used to be a female teacher at the school. Now, she was said to be in love with one of the male students, but because they couldn't be together, she hung herself. Well, they say ghosts exist because of unfinished business here on Earth, and I think that one sounds about right. Next up at number 3 now, we have Stacklands Retreat House. This school in the UK was built in the 1940s and was closed in 2005. Once you see the pictures, I'm sure you'll understand why. Apparently, it was being haunted by the ghosts of priests who were sacrificed there nearly 80 years ago after the owner turned to Satanism. In 2016, ghost hunters went in and claimed to have recorded the voice of a disembodied woman saying that devil worshipping had happened there. Sometimes schools get so boring, people turn to devil worshipping. Moving on to number 2 now, we have Bristol, Tennessee High School. Some of the hauntings we've talked about in this video have been a little bit vague, but the attendees of this school are crystal clear about who haunts their corridors. 3 ghosts. Agnes, whose footsteps echo around the hallways, and then there's a phantom train that might have killed her, and a former athletic student who was run down and killed by a car on his walk home from a game. Personally, I'm not really scared by the thought of a phantom train, just the little girl and also old people ghosts. I'd be fine with a ghost train. Be fun. And finally at number 1 now, we have Topeka High School. If this looks like a church to you, well that's kind of fitting because it's built on top of an old graveyard. The city of Topeka grew quickly at the end of the 20th century and there wasn't really enough room for the new high school, so they built it right on top of a local graveyard. Now unlike the school we talked about earlier in this video, they had the foresight to fully excavate the graveyard before building the school there. Now this may have been smart from a building standpoint, but maybe not a spiritual one. Students have reported many apparitions throughout the years, and unlike a lot of other ghosts we've talked about, these ones apparently talk to each other. No. Whole entire conversations have been heard between the apparitions and whatever thing they're talking to. Some people wonder if this is an echo from the past or are they plotting revenge. Starting off at number 10 now, we have El Paso High School. This school in Texas is over 100 years old and has more haunted stories than you can even imagine. There were stories there of hallways full of some strange mist and even goo dripping from the ceiling, which led to the discovery of hidden classrooms that nobody even knew about. Very creepy stuff, but nothing can touch this picture of the graduating class of 1985. You see that girl in the white in the middle? Yeah, well, she wasn't actually there according to people who were at that picture. Some people say it was the ghost of a girl who jumped to her death off a balcony connected to the misty hallway. I'm gonna stop this one here before it gets any more scary. Alright, at number 9 now we have Lambertville High School. This school in New Jersey closed in 1955 and burned down in 1984. What was left was a shell of a building. In the years after, ghost hunters would explore its ruins. Inside was an eerie blackboard with a chalk drawing of children in a classroom as flames licked up around them. Every hallway looks like something out of a horror movie, and if all of this wasn't enough, there's the tale of Buckeye, the ghost of a student who apparently broke his neck playing football and died. He then haunted the school and was said to deliver the same fate to anyone who mocked him. No thank you. Alright, at number 8 now we have Lincoln High School. This South Dakota school opened in 1965. Not too long ago, but enough time to build up a lot of ghost stories. There's been reports of disembodied footsteps, jangling keys, doors opening and then slamming all by themselves, and perhaps the most creepy of all, reports of a 10-foot tall man in a trench coat floating 6 feet off the stage floor and then just fading away like creepy ghosts do. The fear got so big at one point that 3 students actually made a ghost documentary about the school. It's well worth a watch if you're interested in seeing more. Coming in at number 7 now, we have Pocatello High School in Idaho. This school made headlines in 2014 when creepy surveillance footage seemed to show a spirit walking through the hallways at night, quickly followed by all of the lights flashing on and off. Take a look for yourself, it's pretty weird stuff. Of course, as soon as this happened, people tied it to an old story that had gone around the school for years. That sometime in the 1940s, 2 girls made a suicide pact. One girl killed herself by hanging herself from her locker, but the other girl backed out. Some people say the surveillance footage is the spirit of the dead girl seeking revenge on her traitorous friend.
And we're at number 7. It's Cleveland High School. Hello Cleveland. Love me, Rebecca, over the water here in Canada. Okay, so have a look at this picture and tell me what you see. Raise your hand when you see it. There? Behind the fence? You got it? Yes, me too. This image was taken on a cell phone by Marcella Davis, who was photographing her nephew at football practice. Innocent. It seems though, when she looked at her phone afterwards, she seems to have snapped a ghoul. Now this ghoul is wearing what can only be described as a suave pink 1970s suit. Like, cool. If you can only haunt in one outfit, I really think you want it to be that outfit. Like, absolutely amazing. I would be literally Devo if I died in like lounging clothes or slacks. I want to be a ghost in a power suit, obviously. Does anyone watching go to Cleveland High School? Who is this chic creep? I love them. They're my new idol. A ghostly school in a ghostly town, we are taking things to the Lone Star State at number 6 as we talk the 6 Mile Cemetery. 6 Mile Cemetery in Lalano County is a well-known location of local paranormal stories. At the edge of the cemetery sits an old schoolhouse which has been restored for tourism. Local lore says that a number of children were actually killed there by a mad school teacher. Whatever happened, it's said that the spirits of the children and even some teachers alike haunt the spot. Before it was removed, it was said that writing your name 3 times on the original school blackboard would mean that you would be haunted or meet an untimely demise. Who would do that though? Like, why? Why? As a result of so many people breaking in, authorities removed the blackboard, so you can't even curse yourself, which I think is a good thing. Coming into number 5, we have the Seattle Central College. Seattle Central College is the new name for the school that was previously Burnley Professional School of Art. The college is said to be haunted by the spirit of an 18-year-old student who died falling down the rear steps in 1913. Some believe that he was pushed after a fight at a basketball game. Others believe that he actually ended his life by jumping from a window near the steps. The ghost is said to manifest by opening doors when he's feeling helpful and shoving people on the steps when he's not feeling helpful. Others report disembodied footsteps or phones on the campuses dialing without cause. Now, this is how I know that he's a student. Allegedly, errant cups of coffee are poured by phantom hands. Gotta get you that caffeine when you're studying. It's important. Coming into number 4, we have Ithaca College. Ithaca is a private liberal arts school in Ithaca, New York that was established in 1892. Plenty of time for a spooky ghoul or two to attach itself to the hallowed halls, right? Well, yeah. I found this alarming story on Reddit and I want to read you a little edited version. This is what they wrote. I asked my friend last night if he had ever seen a ghost or anything like that. He told me that when he went to Ithaca around 15 years ago, he and a friend and 2 girls were on their way to a party. They were at a part of the campus that was very old and had old Gothic style architecture. He wanted to emphasize how big this building was to me. He said that there was a corkboard on one wall, a single solid piece that was around 40 foot long and unbroken. He said that while the other people were talking, he just couldn't stop looking at this part of the hall. He just kept on staring at it in the room in the distance behind. He found himself fixated. He said he felt colder than he'd ever felt in his entire life, and suddenly he was paralyzed to the point that he could not even breathe. He was overwhelmed with feelings of dread and terror. He was in a full-blown panic because his friends seemed to not notice that he had been standing there and not moving. He thought this would go on forever. After a while, he finally summoned the strength from deep within to break free. When he did so, he regained his movement and bumped into his friend, and to his surprise, he found that by hitting his friend, he snapped him out of a similar paralyzed state. The pair said that they ran away as fast as they could, and when other people that they were with caught up with them to ask, you okay? They said that actually they'd been there staring at the corner of the room for about 20 minutes, and then from their perspective, they'd been staring for 20 minutes and then they just ran away. They thought that just 1 minute had elapsed though. Now, later the friend discovered a nearby cliff which is apparently famous for a lot of suicides. The giant corkboard that they were staring at the end of the room was covered with flyers and articles about missing persons and student obituaries. He said that the media doesn't report on the bizarrely high number of suicides and paranormal reportings at Ithaca because it's such a prestigious high-status school. The kids of all the rich people and the investors and donors just don't want the negative press. Anyone here go to Ithaca? Can you confirm? Can you deny? Let me know. Coming into number 3, we have Preston School of Industry. Also known as Preston Castle, the Preston School of Industry was a long-held reform school for boys in Ione, California, in Amador County. Anyone know what a reform school is? I'll tell you. Basically, it's a kind of a juvenile prison for bad kids to learn how to behave. Now, this one was opened in 1894 and reformed a fair few boys in its time. It actually seems that dozens of boys lost their life here too, either from disease or violence. Some were shot dead if they tried to escape. Now, the facility closed in 2010, but there are still residents. Undead residents. The building is now both spooky and abandoned, and those who have looked around the grounds have heard slamming sounds, voices, falling objects. Some people have actually felt ghosts push and shove them and seen apparitions. Coming into number 2, we have Pocatello High School in Idaho. This school actually appeared recently in the TV show Ghost Hunters and has since been making headlines. It seems that shrewd entrepreneurs are selling "We have spirits, yes we do" t-shirts for $10 at Pokey High School. Good, I'd buy one. It's pretty cool, right? It's rumored that a boy drowned in the swimming pool at the school years and years and years ago. They don't even have a swimming pool anymore. The high school principal had this to say on Ghost Hunters.
That night, I get a call every time the alarm system goes off. So I get here and there are lots of police cars here. And they said, well, when we got here, the lights were going crazy. We walked through the building, swept the building, found nobody, locked everything up and went home.
Beyond that, a ghost was caught on the school's CCTV camera. Have a look. ghost, right? It seems that the hall is very much haunted, although I don't want to step on the episode of Ghost Hunters. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and watch it. It's pretty spooky. Do you go to this school? Let me know. Coming into number 1, unsurprisingly, we have Gettysburg College. It makes a lot of sense, right? Seeing as, the college is physically beside a historic battleground. Some of the rooms of the school were actually used as a field hospital too, so housed the dead and dying. For those of you watching internationally that don't know, Gettysburg in Pennsylvania was the scene of a massive battle in 1863 between Union and Confederate forces during the Civil War. Now, over 7,000 people officially died on each side, but thousands more went missing, and scores and scores of people were injured. Now, the oldest building on the campus, Pennsylvania Hall, dates back to 1832 and is said to be riddled with ghosts. They don't just stay in the old building either. Lost and wandering souls are seen all over the college grounds. 2004 graduate John said everyone here has had their own ghost story. Like during everyone's time they're here, as in students or teachers, they have some kind of experience with a ghost or a weird occurrence or something.